Y'all, this Aces and Sparks game was so entertaining. It got heated in the late parts of the game, dog. Oh my goodness, man. Cameron Brink, she had enough. She unloaded on the refs, Nalissa Smith, the Aces in general. She literally got pissed out there.
If you watched the Las Vegas Aces take on the Los Angeles Sparks in the Commissioner's Cup, you already know this was not your average basketball game. Sure, the Aces won, and sure, Aya Wilson was dominant from wire to wire, but the scoreboard was almost beside the point by the time the final buzzer sounded. What made this game genuinely must-watch television was the chaos that erupted in the fourth quarter, when Cameron Brink finally hit her breaking point, and everything, the frustration, the trash talk, the technicals, even the sideline drama, spilled out all at once in spectacular fashion. It started, as these things usually do, with the referees. Cameron Brink had been playing good, aggressive defense all night, and on back-to-back possessions, the officials rewarded her for it with fouls she clearly felt she had not committed. The first was a double block. Both Brink and a teammate got their hands on the ball cleanly, and yet the whistle went against Brink. Watch the playback and you'd be hard-pressed to find the foul. The second call was even more questionable. Brink came across and blocked Alyssa Smith's shot, a clean, timed, legitimate block, and they blew the whistle on her again. 2 straight defensive plays. 2 straight bad calls. And that was the moment Cameron Brink had enough. She started twirling her finger at the officials, demanding they run the replay back. She was telling them, loudly and clearly, that she had seen what just happened and she was not going to let it slide. And in the middle of all of that, she turned her attention to Alyssa Smith standing at the free throw line, and the two of them started going at it. Now, Cameron Brink and Alyssa Smith have not historically been known as rivals. This was not some long-standing beef that fans had been waiting to boil over. This was something that started right there, in that moment, born out of frustration and competitive fire, and it escalated fast. Teammates had to physically hold people apart. Words were being exchanged while bodies were being restrained, and the energy in that building went from a basketball game to something that felt genuinely personal between two players. The sideline was not immune to the chaos either. Sparks head coach Curt Miller had seen enough on his end. On one particular play, Aya Wilson came down hard with a contested rebound, and then Chelsea Gray took a shot that Miller was absolutely certain should have been called a foul. He was up, he was animated, he was screaming at the officials from the bench, and at some point one of the referees had heard enough. The official tore up a stat sheet right in front of Miller. Not a technical foul, but a message: "We are done being barked at tonight." Miller did not get ejected, but the moment made it crystal clear that the officials were at their limit just as much as the players were. Then came the scene that honestly might have been the most entertaining part of the whole night, which is saying something. After the sideline eruption, head coach Curt Miller walked the length of the bench like a principal doing a lineup check, going from player to player, asking who said what. And the players? Nobody was claiming anything. Kennedy Burke was rolling her eyes. Jules Bernard was pointing and laughing. It was pure chaos. Even the people on the bench could not keep track of who was beefing with who at that point. The temperature in that building was absolutely through the roof. But the moment that will define this game for anyone who watched it was the double technical. On an inbound play, Brink and Smith were tangled up fighting for position. Brink threw her arm back to create space, basically telling Smith to get off of her, and the official stepped in and hit them both with technicals simultaneously. You could tell Brink did not even realize she had picked one up. Then Jackie Young came over to add her 2 cents, and Brink was not having any of it. She waved Young off, telling her not to come near her right now, not to say anything. Young pointed at Smith as if to say, "Hey, your girl is the one doing the most talking over here." At that point, Brink was unloading on everyone in the vicinity. The actual exchange between Brink and Smith, when you can read the lips clearly on replay, pretty much tells the whole story. Brink slings her arm back and says, "Get off me." Smith responds by telling her to shut up, except she used considerably stronger language than that. 2 sentences. That's the whole rivalry right there. 2 players who had no particular history going into this game, now genuinely at each other's throats, in the middle of a game that still mattered because the point differential could affect Commissioner's Cup standings and who advances toward the championship. And speaking of point differential, the Aces were not done competing even when the game was well in hand. With 11 seconds left on the clock, Las Vegas was still running plays, still trying to score, still treating every possession like it mattered. Because in the Commissioner's Cup format, it does. Jackie Young was barking at Aya Wilson to shoot the ball, and Wilson, who had already put up 25 points, seemed almost reluctant to pile on at that stage. Young needled her about it, asking if she was going soft, which is genuinely hilarious when you consider that Wilson had 5 blocks and 15 rebounds on the night. Aya Wilson was anything but soft in this game. But that moment captured just how locked in the Aces were from first possession to last, and how that level of focus and competitiveness is exactly why they are so difficult to beat when they are playing their game. Now let us talk about what actually happened on the basketball court, because underneath all the drama, the Aces were simply the better team on this particular night, and the numbers make that impossible to dispute. Aya Wilson was the engine of everything good Las Vegas did. 25 points on 50% shooting, including 1 of 3 from three-point range, which tells you she was not camping on the perimeter. She was attacking the paint, getting to her spots, and making the Sparks pay every time they left her room. But the number that really jumps off the page is 5 blocks. She was a wall in that paint, swatting anything that came near the rim, and that defensive presence is a massive part of why the Sparks kept going cold during the stretches that ultimately decided the game. Combine all of that with 15 rebounds, and you have a genuinely complete two-way performance from the best player on the floor. The supporting cast for Las Vegas did its job. Jackie Young finished with 16 points, Chelsea Gray chipped in 12 and ran the offense with the kind of calmness and precision that makes the Aces so hard to rattle. 3 players in double figures, all contributing in meaningfully different ways. That is the formula that makes Las Vegas dangerous at this level. But the offensive player who genuinely impressed most on this night outside of Wilson was Riqua Burrell. She finished with 22 points on 57% from the field and 50% from 3, and she was relentless. Every time the defense stayed parked at home protecting the rim, Burrell attacked the perimeter defenders and took them straight to the basket. She had an answer for everything the Sparks tried against her, and the only unfortunate note is that she rolled her ankle late in the game. You hate to see that, especially when a player is having that kind of performance, but the hope is that it is not serious going forward. For the Sparks, the frustrations on the scoreboard were tied directly to missed contributions from key pieces. Dearica Hamby was completely silent. 0 for 7 from the field, 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists. When a player of that caliber goes an entire game without contributing offensively, while another is being pushed into foul trouble and emotional boiling points, that is a recipe for exactly the kind of implosion that happened tonight. Nikai Amiki did what she could, 12 points and 12 rebounds even on an off-shooting night, adding a steal and a block, so she was at least battling in every way available to her. Erica Wheeler gave them 10 on efficient shooting and tried to spark a comeback that the defense simply could not sustain. That is ultimately the real story of this game. The Sparks fought back in the fourth quarter. They made it interesting. But every time they started to generate momentum, they would go cold on offense and fail to get back in transition, and the Aces would feast. For all the fire and the chirping from Cameron Brink, for all the back and forth with Alyssa Smith, for the technicals and the stat sheet moment on the sideline, all of that noise was ultimately the sound of a frustrated team watching a more disciplined one pull away. The Sparks were not outworked in the sense of effort. They were out-executed by a team that knows how to protect leads, punish defensive breakdowns, and maintain composure even when the game is getting feisty around them. So the question coming out of this game is real. Is Cameron Brink versus Alyssa Smith a genuine rivalry now? Before tonight, nobody would have framed these two as adversaries. They had no particular history. But the way they went at each other in those fourth quarter minutes, the intensity, the physicality, the personal edge to the trash talk, that does not feel like something that goes away quietly. That feels like the beginning of something. Two players who found each other's buttons and pressed them hard, and now every time these teams meet, there is going to be a layer of anticipation that was not there before. Whether it becomes a defining storyline of the season or just a memorable one-off remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. If you were watching that game, you were entertained in a way that goes well beyond basketball.